So this is a testimony, I guess, about obedience and the blessings that can come when God asks you to do something that you don't really want to do. So just a bit of context. Both of Olaf's parents are with Jesus, and their bodies are buried in a cemetery in Ajax. And in that cemetery, there's a very small church that they only open up once per year for a special service in June. And last year was the first year that Olaf and I had gone since I was born again. And when we were listening to the minister, I got a little bit, I guess, concerned because she was telling everybody that they were all going to go to heaven and that all of their loved ones that were buried in the cemetery were also going to heaven. So I left feeling, that's not the message that I've learned, and I just felt really unsettled about it. So this year, it was the 175th anniversary of the cemetery, and Olaf wanted to go back again and go to the service again, and he had invited his brother, who is born again but has been away from the Lord for about 45 years, and also invited his aunt to come. And so a couple of days before, we had decided that we were not going to go to the service this time because I felt that it was probably going to be the same person that was giving the service, and I didn't want to hear again that everybody was going to go to heaven. So we decided we wouldn't go, and then the Sunday morning, so it was on the Sunday morning in June that Billy Burke was in Toronto, Olaf got a word here during your sermon that we were to go to the service. So we got to the cemetery. Not only did Olaf's brother and his aunt show up, but his cousin, who is not born again, also showed up. So we went into the service. It's the same preacher as the year before. And so we're listening. But it was wonderful because she started talking about the fruits of the Spirit. And I'm like, wow, this is a change from last year. And then she started talking about the gifts of the Spirit. And she was talking about tongues and interpretation. Wow. That's what I thought, wow. But she didn't talk about healing. And I'm having this conversation with myself in my head, like, why isn't she talking about healing? Like, that's the most amazing, like, there's 35 people in this church. Like, surely she should talk about healing. And what dropped in my spirit was, you can give your testimony. And I'm like, Lord, no. Like,
like in the service?
In the service.
Oh, beautiful.
And I'm like, Lord, no, like, I cannot do that. And then the churning just started in my gut that I get sometimes when I'm told to do something and I don't want to do it, but I know I'm supposed to. So then the conversation changed to, okay, if I'm going to do this, I don't know how to do this and I don't know when to do it. So you just need to show me. And so almost at the very end, as the minister was getting ready to dismiss us, up goes my hand. And she sees me and she points at me, and I stood up and I said to her, I was so touched by your service, which I was, and I thank you. And I was just wondering if I could add something. And she says, yes. And God, like, he just took over this whole thing, because the next thing I know, I'm telling everybody there, like, I just accepted Jesus 2 years ago. I asked him to come into my heart, and he healed my back of pain that I'd had for 3 years. And he healed my eyes, and he healed my bladder. And I pointed to Olaf and I said, and he was supposed to have a knee replacement, and he healed his knee, and he healed my sister of arthritis. And I looked at everybody and I said, God is real. And like, if any of you haven't accepted Jesus, I just asked you to just consider it. And then I guess God had no more words to give me, and I just said thank you and sat down. But the blessing that came from that came afterwards, because we had made arrangements to go out for lunch with Olaf's aunt and cousin and brother. And we were sitting at the table over lunch, and his cousin is talking about a friend of hers that has all kinds of knee pain and can't get rid of it. And his brother looks like straight at her and says, well, maybe she should start going to church. And then as we're leaving to go to Billy Burke, his brother asks Olaf, where are you going? So he told him. And we get a text as we're coming out of Billy Burke. His brother had texted him and said, like, how can I watch this service online? And of course, we didn't get the text till after the service was over. Olaf texts him back. And then the conversation the next morning was, his brother texts and says, don't worry about it. I found it online. We watched the entire service. And Olaf says, well, what did you think? It made me think of our mom. And Olaf said back to him, well, maybe we'll see you there in person someday. And he said, stranger things have happened. So we just thank God, like, for the...
Thank you. Oh, those relatives, they're on their way.
It was, yeah, they're coming.
Because your sister, of course, already accepted the Lord just shortly after coming here, and she's solid in a church for a year.
Solid and serving and just so close to the Lord and completely changed. Like, she's a completely different person. Yeah, it's beautiful the way the Lord's working in our family.
Let's just stop and say, thank you, Lord.